Okay, today we're going to be replacing the fan in the Hyperdeck Studio Mini. I'm taking a pre-reading at about 68, 69 decibels, um, and then I'll take a reading afterwards once we replace the fan. So this is a Blackmagic Hyperdeck Studio Mini player recorder. It allows you to play back video files, and specifically I'm going to be using it for doing um, transparency playback for videos. So I can do interesting lower four thirds and other video effects. And this is neat because it allows you to have both a key and a fill output. So this is the older version. They have a new version called the Studio Mini HD, and this is the older version. And the benefit of this older version is that it has two SDI outputs, which I'm going to route into um, converters, which go back into HDMI, which will go back into my ATEM Mini Pro switcher. So I've removed the screws from one side, and I'm removing the screws from the other side here. This portion is pretty straightforward. They're just Phillips screws, and they just unscrew. Okay, now I'm getting to the point I can take off the case. What I forgot to take off my sticker for my IP address. I'll just take that off and reposition it. What I normally do with these devices is I'll set it to DHCP, have it find an IP address, and then set that IP address and that MAC combination as a preset in my router. So it makes it a little bit easier to find it later on. So now we've got the inside of the machine. You can see the fan. It's on the right-hand side. Let me zoom in a little bit. It's that black one there. And this fan is pulling air, well, it's blowing air out of the case. So it's pulling air across from the left side through the heat sinks and then pushing it out. So there's a shot there. You can see the fan, and it's blowing out of the case. So I'm going to unscrew this fan here. And there's a 4-pin connector on the main board, and it just pulls straight out. There you have it. The fan's been removed, the old one. And when I got to this point, I was looking at my replacement fan. So let me bring that one in. It's a Noctua fan AF NF43X20. I've used some of these fans on my 3D printer, and they're very quiet. Um, I think part of it is the design of it. There's a lot of rubber mounting portions. The blades look like they're shaped differently than the ones that it's being replacing. But I also think it's a lot quieter because the RPMs are a lot slower. So that would lead to a much quieter operation. So I think it remains to be seen if my Hyperdeck will overheat in the future, but we'll see what happens. I was impressed that there is an instruction booklet for a fan, and that's because there's many different mounting options that they have, different connectors that they have included in there. And unfortunately, the connector that I need is not any of those items. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to splice in my own connector. I've got a fan there. I've got a shot there of both fans, and you can see the connectors. They're physically different sizes, so that's going to be a problem. And not only are they different sizes, but they have a different wiring configuration as well too. So I'm going to have to cut out the connectors on both of this and reuse the old connector on the fan and hook it up to the new fan. Let me get my soldering state. There's the wiring diagram, and I'll also put a link to the wiring diagram in the description. We've got the blue that goes to blue. The two blacks go to each black. Um, but where you switch off is in the old fan connector. There's a red that goes to the yellow. And then in the old fan connector, there's a yellow which goes to a green. So once I cut off these ends, there's no turning back. And I cut them purposely short because the case is not that big in the Hyperdeck Studio Mini. So I didn't want a lot of slack hanging around. And I also use heat shrink tubing as well too, and a heat gun just to try to make the install a little bit cleaner. Now it's back in the case. But then I realized I didn't orient the fan the right way. It's actually blowing into the case instead of out of the case. So I'm going to have to disassemble the case and flip the fan over. Okay, now it's back on. We plugged it in and we're trying to see if it's on. It's very quiet. It's very, very quiet. And it's almost imperceptible to um, the ear. But it's definitely blowing out. And now we're testing it again here. There's some background noise, so that's why it fluctuates quite a bit. But it'll settle down. To about 42. So we went from about 68 to about 42. And it definitely is blowing out. So there you have it. Upgrade fan for the Hyperdeck Studio Mini using the Noctua fan, and I'll put some links in the description for you as well too, so you don't hunt around for the right parts. I'll also put a link to the wiring diagram as well too. The sound reduction is immense. Before, when it was sitting on my desk, it was very noticeable. It was probably the loudest thing in my room. And now it's so quiet I can barely hear it. But once again, we'll see what happens as far as heat is concerned. Um, I'm a little concerned that it's not moving as much air as the old one did, although I do like the reduced noise. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. Thanks, I hope you enjoyed watching.